Can everyone see my screen? I have Salesforce up right now.
I can see it.
You can see, okay, good. So you'll just be the speaker for the group for right now. Okay, perfect. So this is Salesforce, and I apologize. I thought that my meeting with our BizOps team was earlier today, but it's actually right after this meeting. So I don't think you guys have access to anything yet. But I'll make sure in my next meeting to get you all access. And so I kind of right now want to go through the process of what a sample case looks like, what Salesforce looks like, and then what the actual platform looks like. And stop me at any time. I'm just kind of going through the motions. So, oh, Nate is asking what room. Let's see. 4 o'clock. Okay. So this is Salesforce. This is what it looks like. Right now I have up a specific case that I've created for the purposes of going over this. So this is the case. You can see we have the category, which is a new campaign setup. So mostly you guys will be dealing with new campaign setups or campaign changes. So you'll know based on the category if you're creating something completely new or if you're just revising something that's already running. In the subject, we always have the ID, the advertiser ID, and you'll see where that fits into play in the system in a second. And then you have the case description. So this is something that I wrote out, but basically this is for a new campaign that goes live. The campaign ID and the flight dates here. And so then what you guys need to set up is the actual line item. So let's just start from the beginning. And I'm going to show you what, because I know you guys were curious what a contract looks like, what the opportunity looks like. So let me pull that up. So I'm just going to get the contract, otherwise known as agreement. Okay. So this is an example of an insertion order or contract. This is a live intent contract. So sometimes we have live intent specific contracts, and then other times we have third party or client contracts that we use. And those look a little bit different from ours. But just for starting out today, I wanted to give a live intent, what a live intent contract looks like. So the important things up here, it says when the flight starts, so March 6th, when it ends, March 12th, and then the budget. Those are really important for the insertion order. And then down here, you get the actual campaign. So there might be more than one campaign per insertion order. But for this example, we only have one campaign. So it goes into more specifics. It has the flight dates. It has the pricing type, which is CPM, and the budget. And then we have the model is CPM, and then it has the actual CPM amount, which is 528, the budget, and then any sort of targeting. So that's all listed here on the IO, but then I've also listed it on the case description. And we're gonna make sure that our teams who submit these cases do the same and have the same information there. So I've laid out the budget, I've listed the targeting, and then the creatives are not on the insertion order, but that's attached in the case. But essentially, this is an example of a contract. I'm gonna stop.
Can I just ask you, so we will get the case, we'll get the task from somebody at the AdOps team, or will somebody from sales task us too?
No, it'll be someone from like the AdOps team.
Okay,
basically.
okay.
So someone in Nate's department will submit the case, yes.
Okay.
And again, the contract always will be attached and it will have all that information, but then it should also be in the details of the case as well. So it's very clear what's needed.
Okay, and sorry,
being asked.
just to jump in, and do we need to check the IO each time just in case?
Yes, great question. And yes, please do.
Okay.
So sometimes, like if, for example, like if I were to accidentally write like the wrong budget, you want to make sure
absolutely,
that
typos are possible. So that is why I'm asking.
yes, great question. And yes, please do always make sure. And then just reach out if something is inconsistent, like if it says 2 different budgets or different dates. Yes.
Okay.
But it's always good to double check that. Absolutely. And then on our side, so before you get the case, we do something called syncing the IO. So when let me just go back to the opportunity. So there's this button here. This is the opportunity details where we sync to live intent. So that pretty much syncs over the information on the IO level and the campaign level. So it really leaves only the line item level, which is where all the targeting is, that still needs to be trafficked. So whenever you get cases, they should already be synced. And I'll show you what that looks like in the platform too. But you shouldn't ever need to set up an insertion order or a campaign. That should already be done. So if for some reason someone's having you set up an insertion order or campaign, and you should ask, hey, doesn't this need to be synced? And Nate and I will do like a write-up for you of kind of the process of the workflow. So you don't have to remember all of this, but just kind of want to put that out there. So every time you get something, it should already be synced. The high-level details should already be in the platform. But I'll show you what that looks like. So in my description, I have laid out the campaign ID that, again, was already synced over. So you should always have the campaign ID for where you're going to be trafficking the line items. So, so there's this toggle up here. The lines, this is called the details page. And that's where you find the information about the case. That's where you'd see my description, everything like that. And then this is what we call the chatter. So let's say you needed to talk to me and something was wrong. You could just comment. So I attached a file here to do the creatives, but you could just type out like, hey, Rachel, this is confusing or something like that. You could just message me anything and then just press comment and it'll show up and I'll get a notification. So if you ever need to communicate with someone who submitted the case, then you would be able to do that. Any questions so far?
No.
Okay, perfect. And then to make sure that you've tagged them, you can do, and again, this will all be in the write-up, but you can do an @ symbol and then start typing the person's name. So if you wanted to type my name, and then you could just click on me, and then you could start typing, and then I would definitely get the notification. So sometimes you don't always get the notification unless your name is tagged. So you can always just, if you need to tag someone, like I'm going to tag, I'll tag Nate. Just the @ symbol and then start typing their name. And I know you guys have used Salesforce. I just don't know if it's similar to how Live Intent uses it. So that's why I just wanted to go over all of this. But all the information is really on the details page. That's where you'll see what's going on. So now I've got the details, everything's been synced. You've just received this case. So what I'm going to do is copy this ID and go into the platform. So let me just start over. So this is Live Intent's platform, our UI, and there's a lot of things going on, but basically this is just for monitoring purposes. But if you ever have like a specific ID that you're searching for, you can just type this search and then paste that ID. And then you can press enter or it'll just come up after a couple seconds. So I've copied and pasted the campaign ID, and now I'm going to click and go directly to the campaign. But I'm actually going to back up one. So this is the insertion order detail. So this is what was already synced over. I didn't set this up. This is when I just pressed sync to live intent, this automatically appears. So this, and I'm sorry, I forget who asked the question, but this is where you'd want to check to make sure that the platform has the same information as the contract, as the insertion order. So this is where I would double check to make sure that properly, and there's no mistakes there.
Okay, understood.
And then if you needed to edit anything, you could do so by pressing edit, and you could change something was ever wrong. You are able to edit.
And we are allowed to do that. We don't.
Yeah, if it's wrong, you are allowed to do it. I would just say in the comment section in the chatter up here, I would just make a note and just type that out to the person who submitted the case. That way they know that you had to make a change because something wasn't accurate.
Okay.
So this is the insertion order. And again, it'll say, this is where it says the ID. So that's the insertion order ID. So I specifically clicked on the campaign ID, but I also gave you the insertion order ID right here. So you could also search by that. We do everything by IDs in our platform. So we'll always make sure that you have an ID to search by. And then that way you know exactly what you're looking for. So when you scroll down under the insertion order, you have the campaigns listed, and I know it's cut off a little bit here. Let's see if I can just make it. That's worse. Okay. Well, I'll make sure when you guys have access, you can definitely play around in this because I can't scroll down any further, but this is the just high level information on the campaign, but you can actually go and click on the campaign and go to the campaign details page. So every level of the is listed up here. So this is the full advertiser, Penguin Random House. This is the specific insertion order for them. And then this is the campaign that we're on. So you can always click back to these buttons if you need to. If this had already gone live, data would appear here for the amount of impressions and clicks and spend that we've delivered so far. But because we're not live, that's not there yet. And then here is where you'll be creating the line item. So this is not synced over. So what's synced over is the insertion order and then the high level campaign details. Campaign, just like the IO, you can edit and just make sure that this information is the same the contract. So if you ever needed to change the goal, and I can go over the goals in a second, you would know the goal based off of the case, but if you ever needed to change anything, you could just do so here and then make a note of it in the case. That way we knew, like if the CPM was wrong or something like that. And then once everything looks good, you can start creating the actual line item. So you have to make sure that you're in the right campaign. So this, again, you can always check by the ID. So this is the ID that I submitted in the case. So just double check that you're under that right ID. And then you'll scroll down and you can just click create line item. So the line item is where all the targeting is. And that's how we actually make sure that. So all the information is on the case details. So I have here the name, the flight dates are listed up here. But let's just start with basics for now. So I'm just going to copy and paste this name. Some of our AdOps members are more specific about names than others. So if they don't list a name, you can just copy it over from the campaign level. But if they provide a specific name, they might do so, then just use that. We're always going to make sure that everything stays paused. As we discussed on Friday, I think it was, when you submit it back to us for approval, it should still remain paused, and then we'll do one more last check before setting it live. So we'll always just keep it in this paused state. Okay, and then next is flight dates. So you can press this button called Use Campaign Dates if it's using the same dates as the campaign, and it automatically populates there. If, let's say, for some reason I said, hey, actually this is going live on the 8th, you could just click the box and then choose a different day. if it's the same day as the campaign, then you can just click the use campaign dates. And it's the same thing with the budget. So there's this button, use it all. If for some reason we're not breaking it out, or we are breaking it out and you're not using the whole budget on this particular line item, you could just enter in whatever you needed. But if that's not the case, you can always just press this use it all button and it'll just populate all the information there. And all that information will be on the case. So if I needed to say that this goes live on the 7th, you would see that in the case. But that's an example where the IO might say the 6th, but I would say, hey, because the client asked X, Y, and Z, it's going live on a different day. But the IO level and the campaign level have to match what's on the contract. It's the strategy level that sometimes might change. If we had a daily spend cap, you could just enter that here. Again, that would be given to you. In this case, we don't have one. I'll go back to the case to show the other. So the first targeting that I list is United States. That's going to be a given unless otherwise stated. So in this case, I've written it out, but if you ever have someone submit a case to you and it doesn't provide geo-targeting, you can assume that it's just United States. So I'm going down to the geo.
So if there is no geo, then United States always.
Correct.
Okay.
And then you can search here for when you're adding any sort of geo. So right now I'm just going to add states, but let's say I needed to add like New York. I have the option to choose region, which means New York State, metro, which is a DMA. So it's like a metro area. And then, or the specific city of New York, New York. So it says next to it which one, and it'll list in the case, like if someone says, sometimes we'll do like a bunch of cities. So like Boston, New York, Chicago, it'll list that and it'll say cities. And so that way you know which one to click on. Or it'll say DMAs and then you click on metro, or it'll say states and that's region. But again, if it's not specified, then it's always just United States. One thing that, and again, this will all be written out for you, but one thing I just want to note here while I'm going over it, in our platform, we have to target one type of geo at a time. So for example, all countries or all cities or all metros. I can't do like a city and a couple cities and some that are states, and I can't cross choose different metro or different geo types. Does that make sense?
So it's going to be either just by state or just by city, but you cannot say I want San Francisco and Massachusetts, for example, right?
Correct. That's exactly right. Yes, that's exactly right. And our AdApps team should know this. But we're going to write this out for you guys too. And it would be great if you guys could just enforce that too. And just keep a lookout for that in case someone accidentally provides you like San Francisco and Massachusetts. And then you would push back and say, you know what, we can't target more different types of geos. But the team does know that, but it's good for you to know that as well. And then if you make a mistake and you accidentally select the wrong thing, you can always exit it up here or just press clear all at the bottom if you need to go back. You also have the option to exclude. So we don't do this very often for geos, but let's say they wanted to specifically not serve in New York City, for example. So what I would do is just that. So it's on exclude, and then I could just type New York. And then now it's exclude New York City. So you can easily change whichever one that you need. This will all be listed in the case.
And it can be only either included or excluded. We cannot do both.
Right, great question. That's correct. So we can't say target these two cities, but exclude this city. Exactly.
Mhm.
It has to be all or nothing. Yeah. This is where we get to more demographic targeting. So you have age, gender, and device. You can choose include or exclude for these as well. And like you just asked, it has to be all or nothing. In this case, I've said to exclude ages 18 to 24. So one of the things that I want to highlight is if you look at the contract, and I don't know if you guys can see this, one of the things it says is 30 plus. Can you, hopefully you can see that, is 30 plus. And so even though on the contract it says 30 plus, lots of times what we do something called exclusion targeting. So that way we reach a wider audience. So what I'm going to do is instead of targeting, I'm going to exclude the ages below that. And unfortunately, we don't. These are the age breakdowns, and 30 is not one of the choices. So to be more inclusive, I'm only going to exclude 18 to 24 because 30 is in this age range right there. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Mhm.
Okay, perfect.
So whenever we have age, we should only exclude what shouldn't be in.
Yeah. So it depends. So for the most part, yes. But I would say that if on a case it explicitly says, like let's say in this case it said to target instead of exclude ages 18 to 24, it said target ages
Oh,
30 up.
absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, so just follow the case. But don't be alarmed if this is slightly different than what's on the contract.
Okay.
And you can always ask, like, feel free to ask questions if you see something that's confusing.
Absolutely, don't worry. We will ask.
Okay, good. But because I want you guys to be looking for that kind of stuff too. Like if you saw in the contract that it's different, like, hey, wait, this doesn't sound right. But when it comes to demographic targeting, we lots of times will inverse it. Don't be surprised when you see that. So I've just excluded ages 18 to 24. And then we don't have any gender device targeting. We do have category targeting. So going back to the case, I have here to target these categories. And this is also listed on the contract as well. So I'm going to go here. This is an advanced targeting. And these are all of the different targeting things that we have. Right now, we're just adding category, but in case you see any other, and it should be really spelled out in the case, like you'll know if you're targeting or excluding publishers or browsers, things like that. Days and time, we can do that as well. But for right now, we're just doing category targeting. So I remember some of them. So you just start typing and then it comes up. So family and parenting was one. The weird thing though is when you click it, it shows up underneath it. So sometimes you might need to click to the side to see if it actually went through or not. So I have family and parenting, food and drink, and then arts and entertainment. And then we have shopping, home, garden, and news. So shopping, home, garden, news. Okay, perfect. So you can make sure that it's targeted here. And if you accidentally click something, you can always just exit out if you need to, or clear all of it. If that's targeting. You can do the same thing where you exclude. So sometimes like they'll, some campaigns exclude news or exclude religion or something like that. So you can always press the exclude button and do the same thing. Third party we are getting rid of, so you'll probably have less of that, but it's just another one of the targeting tactics. And then down here we have the ad. So this is where you would actually start trafficking the ads. You can save without having the ads traffic. So if you like take a break or if something else becomes more urgent, but you've already started, you can, and I wish you could see this. There's this button. It's being blocked, but I'm just gonna see if like, There's really no way. Okay. Well, there's this button on the bottom right-hand corner, and it's blue and says review. So that's basically how you press save. You click the review button, and it gives you a little pop-up of all of the targeting that you have. So it's kind of like one final double check. And then there's this button that you can see maybe very top of that it says save. So if everything looks good and you don't need to make any changes, then you can just press save. If you realize, oh no, I need to include one more category, you can just press exit and it'll bring you right back to the line item with everything still there. So I'm going to press save. And then it brings you to the line item details page. One of the cool things about our platform is it warns you that you don't have any active ads. So it's saying that the line item is not ready because you don't have any active ads. So it's a good, just double check to make sure that you have everything. But this is all of the line item information that we just created. And if we had ads, they would appear down here. So that is the basics of setting up the line item. And again, you can always go back to the campaign and go between different levels this way if you need to. And then on the campaign level, if you scroll down, now you'll see the line item that we just created. And it'll say not ready because it doesn't have the ads linked. And you can just click on the line item to go back. That. Everything clear so far?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. So now we're going to go over trafficking the creatives. So in the case, I've attached a zip file, and I mentioned that here too, like raw images and tag sheet zip file. So I'm going to go back to the chatter, and you can just download directly from here. This okay. So this is in the zip file. So we have different ad sizes here, and then we have the actual tag sheet. So I'm going to first open the tag sheet.
Since you're not doing third-party tags, got to.
Okay, sure. So this client is using DCM tags, Google's DoubleClick tags. So, and have you guys, you've seen one of these?
Absolutely.
Okay, perfect. That's good. This is, you're making it very easy. Okay. So I'll go over the process of tracking them. So the first thing that we do when we see the tag sheet is we change the macros. So anytime that you see timestamp or cache buster or random, you'll change it to the live intent macro, which is, this will be in the sheet. So I'm just going to find and replace all. The live intent macro is equals capital D for decision, capital I, lowercase d. So it's equals decision ID equals, and then the D and the I are capitalized. And that will be there. So just replace all. Okay, so that's all good. And then now we are ready to upload our creatives.
And if these are not DCM tags, for example, and if we don't see any placeholder for macros, do we add them somewhere or not?
No, great question. So for the most part, no. So if it's not third-party tags, so we also work sometimes with Flash Talking and Seismic, and we'll give you documentation on how to change that for our platform. But if it's just standard a click URL, you would just
I mean, third-party tags or trackers of any kind which do not have a placeholder for any macro. So not sure if we should add it manually somehow or do not change anything.
Yeah. So for some of
we usually don't.
Yeah. So for I think it's Flash Talking. They don't have macros in the tags that they give us. but we added on to the end of the impression tracker and the click URL.
Okay, so in manual we will have the most common ones, right?
The most common actually will be DCM tags.
Okay.
Yeah, this should
That's
be
easy
by
then.
far the most common. Yes, this will be the most common. And then you'll also have just regular click URLs, which aren't third-party tags, and then you don't have to do anything.
Absolutely.
If it's not third-party, you don't have to do any. You don't have to add
Absolutely.
anything. Okay, perfect. So now I'm adding the ads. So you just click Start Building Ads. This pops up, so I can either drag and drop, or I can into this section, or I can just click to upload. So I'll just upload and click the creatives. And then they automatically appear here. And then you have all 6 creatives. So these are our 6 ad sizes. So for the most part, you'll get creatives in batches of 6. So if they have 2 concepts, you'll have 12. Or if they just have 1 concept, it'll just be the 6. Sometimes we don't always provide all 6, but for the most part, this is kind of what it looks like having one of each of our accepted sizes. So then,
And sorry, you don't have mobile? No?
so our mobile are these 2. These are our mobile marquees, is the 970 by 550. And then our other marquee, the 970 by 250, also works on mobile as well.
And it shrinks somehow, right? It shrinks somehow to 320 by 50. Okay. Okay.
Yeah. So so it's dynamic. So it'll just adjust. Yep.
Okay.
Exactly. And actually, great question. So this little box should automatically be checked off when it's a dynamic creative. So both of these sizes should automatically have that box checked off because they are dynamic, and that's what this little thing means. But the other sizes won't have that checked off because they're not dynamic. They're just a static size. But great question. So now when we go to actually put in the tags, we have a pretty strict naming convention, and that's for us to keep track of discrepancies. So we start with the placement ID. So it's always, so we completely get rid of the ad name if they're using third-party tags. So placement ID, placement name. And then sometimes we do an underscore and write the date, but you do not have to. I haven't been.
It makes sense if you change something later or something like that, at least you know when you do what.
Exactly, right. So for the most part, so this is our naming convention. So it's placement ID underscore placement name underscore date. Yeah.
Okay.
Perfect. And then.
And size? You don't put the size?
No, we don't put the size. And lots of times it's mentioned here in the.
In placement name.
So
Sorry.
yeah, but if it's not mentioned there, you still don't need to put the size. And then you just grab the click tag. Right there. And then the impression tag, we grab in between the quotes. And if you need to test to make sure that the click URL works, you can press this test link, and then it brings you to the landing page. Make sure that it looks good.
Do you check impression tracker as well?
Not always, but we could put it in just to make sure that it's a 1-by-1.
Because sometimes people do make mistakes when do trafficking in DCM, and we had the situations when both are actually leading to the 1-by-1 empty pixel or something like that.
Yes,
so
yeah,
good thing to check both.
Yeah, perfect. Agree. Absolutely. And then in this case, we have separate tags for each creative. But if they were all using the same like click URL, you could just press this button, and then it would populate under all of the creatives. here.
All others. Okay. Mhm.
Yeah. So if that was the case, then you could do that here. But then, yeah, so that's just trafficking. And then you would just go through, and normally I highlight it for myself when I know that it's done.
We do it too.
Yeah. And go
Parrot
through.
colors. Mm.
Yes, exactly. And just do the same thing. Placement ID, get rid of the placement name or the creative name, placement ID underscore. I won't go through. I'll just do this one, and then we'll stop there. And then this. And if you, like, for example, I'm going to save without trafficking all of them. It won't let me save with missing information, with missing like click URLs. So I'm just going to, you can always unlink the creatives from the strategy. And that's just by hovering over and you see this X and then it gets rid of it. So,
And you will edit them later.
yes.
Okay.
And so then I'll review again, and creatives, I could check that right here. Just make sure everything looks good. Save at the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
And then we go back to the line item page, and then the creatives are linked down here. So you can always see that. But yeah, so then let's say that I was done, I finished trafficking the campaign. We are going to have, Nate and I were going to send over a checklist. And this will be in a training maybe tomorrow, going over the checklist and things like that. So you'll go through the checklist and kind of write the information next to that. And then what you can do when you're done with setup is just comment like to the person who submitted the case, like, Rachel, confirming setup is complete. So line item ID, and then list attached. And then you could attach this checklist that Nate and I have over. And then just press comment. And then I just commented to myself, so I'll get the notification. But then what you can do is then we'll go through it with BizOps in our next meeting. But there's a button that we have called Submit for Approval. It just might be easier to have you just press that button, and then it automatically goes back to the person who created it. But we'll work on that process. Finishing up that process.
Okay.
Yeah. But worst case, you could always just change the case owner. If you just, I'm on the details page. If you just scroll down a little bit to case owner, you can always change that. And like, if you needed to put that in my name or someone else's name, only assign the case back to someone
that will show in your queue.
Yes, exactly. So then I'm going to assign it to myself. Save.
And how should we do a prioritization during the day? Or maybe it's not for today's call, but I don't know. Are we how the list of cases look like?
Great question.
Can we do a prioritization by I don't know, start date, or how when we receive them, first in, first out, or how?
Great question. So for the most part, it should be first in, first out, with the exception of see these little dots next to each case. So those are the priority levels. So orange is high, yellow is medium, and green is low. So
Okay.
if you're
Orange first.
orange first, and then we actually have something that's red, which is not even on here. That's urgent.
I do it yesterday.
Exactly. So it's really red, orange, yellow, then green.
Okay, perfect.
But yeah, so orange first, then yellow, then green. And then also I'm in the habit of saying when this is due by. So for example, I've written here, please complete this by Wednesday, 2/28. So if you're free and you have time, then you can obviously do it before then. But
Absolutely.
it also will help for our team to give a due date. So that way, when things come in, you know that it's not, don't worry about it if it's not due for a couple days. Yeah, but I think that's all we should go over for this session. And again, I'm going to get you guys access. And then once we've confirmed that you have access, let me know if you have any issues.
Mm-hmm.
But just feel free to take a look and play around. And I think we should set up our next session.
Okay. Are we going to set it up for tomorrow?
Yes. And I think Nate might.
Yeah, I'll be leading tomorrow. So
Same time suits you or not? Same time as today.
I